The United States invasion of Grenada began at dawn on the 25th of October 1983. The U.S. and a coalition of 6 Caribbean nations attacked the island nation of Grenada, 100 miles north of Venezuela. Codenamed Operation Urgent Fury, the multinational intervention resulted in an Allied victory within a matter of days. It was triggered by the strife within the People's Revolutionary Government, which resulted in the house arrest and execution of the previous leader and second Prime Minister of Grenada, Maurice Bishop, and the establishment of the Revolutionary Military Council with Hudson Austin as chairman. The invasion resulted in the appointment of an interim government, followed by democratic elections in 1984. The country has remained a democratic nation since then. Background: Sir Eric Gairy had led Grenada to independence from the United Kingdom in 1974, but his term in office coincided with civil strife in Grenada. He was head of the Grenada United Labour Party and claimed victory in the general election of 1976, but the opposition did not accept the result as legitimate. The civil strife took the form of street violence between Gairy's private army, the Mongoose Gang, and gangs organised by the New Jewel movement. Maurice Bishop led the New Jewel movement in an armed revolution and overthrew the government on the 13th of March 1979, while Gairy was out of the country, establishing the People's Revolutionary Government. On the 16th of October 1983, Deputy Prime Minister Bernard Cord seized power and placed Bishop under house arrest. There were mass protests against this, which led to Bishop escaping detention and reasserting his authority as the head of the government. He was eventually captured and murdered by a firing squad of soldiers, along with his partner and several government officials and union leaders who were loyal to him. The army under Hudson Austin then stepped in and formed a military council to rule the country, and they placed Governor-General Paul Scoon under house arrest. The army announced a 4-day total curfew where anyone seen on the streets would be summarily executed. The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, Barbados, and Jamaica all appealed to the United States for assistance. Scoon had requested the invasion through secret diplomatic channels, but it was not made public for his safety. He was well within his rights to take this action under the reserve powers vested in the Crown. On Saturday the 22nd of October 1983, the Deputy High Commissioner in Bridgetown, Barbados visited Grenada and reported that Scoon was well and did not request military intervention, either directly or indirectly, but in his 2003 autobiography, Scoon maintains he asked the visiting British diplomat to pass along an oral request for outside military intervention at this meeting. On the 25th of October, the combined forces of the United States and the regional security system based in Barbados invaded Grenada in an operation codenamed Operation Urgent Fury. America stated that this was done at the request of Barbados Prime Minister Tom Adams and Dominica's Prime Minister Eugenia Charles. The invasion was highly criticized by the governments in Canada, Trinidad and Tobago, and the United Kingdom. The United Nations General Assembly condemned it as a flagrant violation of international law by a vote of 108 to 9, with 27 abstentions. Invasion. The invasion began at 0500 hours on the 25th of October 1983. U.S. commandos deployed for Grenada by helicopter from Grantley Adams International Airport on Barbados before daybreak. Nearly simultaneously, American paratroopers arrived directly by transport aircraft from bases in the eastern United States, and U.S. Marines were airlifted to the island from the USS Guam offshore. It was the first major operation conducted by American military since the Vietnam War. Vice Admiral Joseph Metcalf III, commander of the Second Fleet, was the overall commander of American forces, designated Joint Task Force 120, which included elements of each military service and multiple special operations units. Fighting continued for several days and the total number of American troops reached some 7,000, along with 300 troops from the Organization of American States, commanded by Brigadier Rudyard Lewis of Barbados. The invading forces encountered about 1,500 Grenadian soldiers and about 700 armed Cuban nationals manning defensive positions. The People's Revolutionary Army possessed 8 BTR-60 armored personnel carriers and 2 BRDM-2 scout cars that they had received from the Soviet Union in February 1981, but no tanks. Their arsenal also included 12 ZU-23 anti-aircraft guns, DSHK heavy machine guns, and a limited number of M37 82mm mortars and RPG launchers. The main objectives on the first day were for the 75th Ranger Regiment to capture the Point Salines International Airport in order for the 82nd Airborne Division to land reinforcements on the island. The 8th Marine Regiment was to capture Pearls Airport, and other forces to rescue the American students at the True Blue campus of St. George's University. In addition, a number of special operations missions were undertaken by Army Delta Force operatives and Navy SEALs to obtain intelligence and secure key individuals and equipment. Many of these missions were plagued by inadequate intelligence, planning, and accurate maps of any kind, and the American forces mostly relied upon tourist maps. A and B companies of the 1st Battalion of the 75th Ranger Regiment embarked on C-130s at Hunter Army Airfield at midnight on the 24th of October to perform an air assault landing on Point Salines International Airport, intending to land at the airport and then disembark. But the Rangers had to switch abruptly to a parachute landing when they learned mid-flight that the runway was obstructed. The airdrop began at 05:30 on the 25th of October in the face of moderate resistance from ZU-23 anti-aircraft guns and several BTR-60 APCs, which were knocked out by M67 rifle fire. A Cone 30 gunships provided support for the landing. Cuban construction vehicles were commandeered to help clear the airfield, and one was even used to provide mobile cover for the Rangers as they moved to seize the heights surrounding the airfield. They cleared the airstrip of obstructions by 10 a.m., and transport planes were able to land and unload additional reinforcements, including M151 jeeps and members of the Caribbean Peace Force who were assigned to guard the perimeter and detainees. Starting at 1400, units began landing at Point Salines from the 82nd Airborne Division under Edward Trobor, including battalions of the 325th Infantry Regiment. At 1530, 3 BTR-60s of the Grenadian Army Motorized Company counterattacked, but the Americans repelled them with recoilless rifles and an AC-130. The Rangers fanned out and secured the surrounding area, including negotiating the surrender of more than 100 Cubans in an aviation hangar. However, a Jeep-mounted Ranger patrol became lost searching for True Blue campus and was ambushed, with 4 killed. The Rangers eventually secured True Blue campus and its students, where they found only 140 students and were told that more were at another campus in Grand Anse. In all, the Rangers lost 5 men on the first day, but succeeded in securing Point Salines and the surrounding area. A platoon of Navy SEALs from SEAL Team 4 under Lieutenant Mike Walsh approached the beach near Pearls Airport around midnight on the 24th of October after evading patrol boats and overcoming stormy weather. They found that the beach was undefended but unsuitable for an amphibious landing. The 2nd Battalion of the 8th Marine Regiment then landed south of Pearls Airport using CH-46C Knight and CH-53C Stallion helicopters at 05:30 on the 25th of October. They captured Pearls Airport, encountering only light resistance, including ADS-HK machine gun which a Marine AH-1 Cobra destroyed. UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters delivered SEAL Team 6 operators in the early morning of the 25th of October to Radio Free Grenada with the purpose of using the radio station for psychological operations. They captured the station unopposed and destroyed the radio transmitter. However, they were attacked by Grenadian forces in cars and an armored personnel carrier, which forced the lightly armed SEALs to cut a fence and retreat into the ocean as they received fire from the APC. The SEALs swam to the USS Caron. At least 2 were seriously wounded and bleeding, one with a shoulder injury and the other with a calf injury. Both SEALs were transferred by helicopter to USS Independence afterwards. Also on the 25th of October, Delta Force and C Company of the 75th Ranger Regiment embarked in MH-60 and MH-6 Little Bird helicopters of Task Force 160 to capture Fort Rupert, where they believed the Revolutionary Council leaders lived, and Richmond Hill Prison, where political prisoners were being held. The raid on Richmond Hill Prison lacked vital intelligence, including the fact that several anti-aircraft guns defended it, and that the prison was on a steep hill without room for a helicopter to land. Anti-aircraft fire wounded passengers and crew and forced one MH-60 helicopter to crash land, causing another helicopter to land next to it to protect the survivors. One pilot was killed, and the Delta Force operators had to be relieved by a Navy Sea King helicopter. The raid on Fort Rupert, however, was successful in capturing several leaders of the People's Revolutionary Government. The last major special operation was a mission to rescue Governor General Schoon from his mansion in St. George, Grenada. The mission departed late at 05:30 on the 25th of October from Barbados, resulting in the Grenadian forces being already aware of the invasion, and they guarded Schoon closely. The SEAL team entered the mansion without opposition, but BTR-60 armored personnel carriers counter-attacked and trapped the SEALs and the governor inside. AC-130 gunships, A-7 Corsair strike planes, and AH-1 Cobra attack helicopters were called in to support the besieged SEALs, but the SEALs remained trapped for the next 24 hours. At 1900 on 25th of October, 250 Marines from G Company of the 22nd Marine Assault Unit landed at Grand Malbay equipped with amphibious assault vehicles and 4 M60 Patton tanks. They relieved the Navy SEALs the following morning, allowing Governor Schoon, his wife, and 9 aides to be safely evacuated at 1000 hours that day. The Marine tank crews continued advancing in the face of sporadic resistance, knocking out a BRDM-2 armored car. G Company subsequently defeated and overwhelmed the Grenadian defenders at Fort Frederick. Navy A-7 Corsairs and Marine AH-1 Cobra attack helicopters made airstrikes against Fort Rupert and Fort Frederick. An A-7 raid on Fort Frederick targeting anti-aircraft guns hit a nearby mental hospital, killing 18 civilians. 2 Marine AH-1 Cobras and a UH-60 Black Hawk were shot down in a raid against Fort Frederick, resulting in 5 casualties. General Trumbull of the 82nd Airborne Division had 2 goals on the second day, securing the perimeter around Salines Airport, and rescuing American students held in Grand Anse. The Army lacked undamaged helicopters after the losses on the first day and consequently had to delay the student rescue until they made contact with Marine forces. Early on the morning of the 26th of October, Cuban forces ambushed a patrol from the 2nd Battalion of the 325th Infantry Regiment near the village of Calist. The American patrol suffered 6 wounded and 2 killed, including the commander of Company B. Navy airstrikes and an artillery bombardment by 105 mm howitzers targeting the main Cuban encampment eventually led to their surrender at 08:30. American forces pushed on to the village of Frequenti, where they discovered a Cuban weapons cache reportedly sufficient to equip 6 battalions. Cuban forces ambushed a reconnaissance platoon who were mounted on gun jeeps, but the jeeps returned fire, and a nearby infantry unit added mortar fire. The Cubans suffered 4 casualties with no American losses. Cuban resistance largely ended after these engagements. On the afternoon of the 26th of October, Rangers of the 2nd Battalion of the Ranger Regiment mounted Marine CH-46C night helicopters to launch an air assault on the Grand Anse campus. The campus police offered light resistance before fleeing, wounding 1 Ranger, and one of the helicopters crashed on the approach after its blade hit a palm tree. The Rangers evacuated the 233 American students by CH-53C Stallion helicopters, but the students informed them that there was a 3rd campus with Americans at Prickly Bay. A squad of 11 Rangers was accidentally left behind. They departed on a rubber raft which was picked up by USS Caron at 2300. By the 27th of October, organized resistance was rapidly diminishing, but the American forces did not yet realize this. The Marine 22nd MAU and 8th Regiment continued advancing along the coast and capturing additional towns, meeting little resistance, although 1 patrol did encounter a single BTR-60 during the night and dispatched it with the M72 Law. The 325th Infantry Regiment advanced towards St. George, capturing Grand Anse and discovering 200 American students whom they had missed the first day. They continued to the town of Ruth Howard and the capital of St. George, meeting only scattered resistance. An air-naval gunfire liaison team called in an A-7 airstrike and accidentally hit the command post of the 2nd Brigade, wounding 17 troops, 1 of whom died. The Army had reports that PR forces were amassing at the Calavigny Barracks, only 5 kilometers from the Point Salines airfield. They organized an air assault by the 2nd Battalion of the 75th Ranger Regiment preceded by a preparatory bombardment by field howitzers, A-7 Corsairs, AC-130s, and USS Caron. The Black Hawk helicopters began dropping off troops near the barracks, but they approached too fast. 1 of them crash-landed and the 2 behind it collided with it, killing 3 and wounding 4. The barracks were deserted. In the following days, Resistance ended entirely and the Army and Marines spread across the island, arresting PR officials, seizing caches of weapons, and seeing to the repatriation of Cuban engineers. On the 1st of November, 2 companies from the 22nd Marine Amphibious Unit made a combined sea and helicopter landing on the island of Carrizo 17 miles northeast of Grenada. The 19 Grenadian soldiers defending the island surrendered without a fight. This was the last military action of the campaign. Outcome. Official U.S. sources state that some of the opponents were well prepared and well positioned and put up stubborn resistance, to the extent that the Americans called in 2 battalions of reinforcements on the evening of the 26th of October. The total naval and air superiority of the American forces had overwhelmed the defenders. Nearly 8,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines had participated in Operation Urgent Fury along with 353 Caribbean allies of the Caribbean Peace Forces. American forces sustained 19 killed and 116 wounded, Cuban forces sustained 25 killed, 59 wounded, and 638 combatants captured. Grenadian forces suffered 45 dead and 358 wounded, at least 24 civilians were also killed, 18 of whom died in the accidental bombing of a Grenadian mental hospital. The Americans also destroyed a significant amount of Grenada's military hardware, including 6 APCs and an armored car. The U.S. government defended its invasion of Grenada as an action to protect American citizens living on the island, including medical students. Deputy Secretary of State Kenneth W. Dam said that action was necessary to resolve what Article 28 of the Charter of the Organization of American States refers to as a situation that might endanger the peace. He added that the OAS Charter and the UN Charter both recognize the competence of regional security bodies in ensuring regional peace and stability, referring to the decision by the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to approve the invasion. The UN Charter prohibits the use of force by member states except in cases of self-defense or when specifically authorized by the UN Security Council. The UN Security Council had not authorized invasion. Similarly, the United Nations General Assembly adopted General Assembly Resolution 38/7 by a vote of 108 to 9 with 27 abstentions, which deeply deplores the armed intervention in Grenada, which constitutes a flagrant violation of international law. A similar resolution in the United Nations Security Council received widespread support but was vetoed by the United States, who enjoyed broad support for the operation at home. The American and Caribbean governments quickly reaffirmed Schoon as Queen Elizabeth's sole legitimate representative in Grenada, and hence the only lawful authority on the island. In accordance with Commonwealth constitutional practice, Schoon assumed power as interim head of government and formed an advisory council which named Nicholas Brathwaite as chairman pending new elections. The Grenada National Party won the elections in December 1984 and formed a government led by Prime Minister Herbert Blaise. American forces remained in Grenada after combat operations finished in December as part of Operation Island Breeze. Elements remaining performed security missions and assisted members of the Caribbean Peacekeeping Force and the Royal Grenadian Police Force, including military police, special forces, and a specialized intelligence detachment. The Point Salines International Airport was renamed in honor of Prime Minister Maurice Bishop on the 29th of May 2009, his 65th birthday. Hundreds of Grenadians turned out to commemorate the event. Prime Minister Tillman Thomas gave the keynote speech and referred to the renaming as an act of the Grenadian people coming home to themselves. He also hoped that it would help bring closure to a chapter of denial in Grenada's history.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and check back for our next video.